Good evening, viewers. So we are here again, and Dr. Adtiyanjee with us, and we are going to just discuss about this Israel-Hamas war and taking update on this war. What is the situation now, and what we should expect from this war. So, welcome, Dr. Adtiyanjee. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Hari Prakash ji. It's always a pleasure to come on your platform. I'm very pleased to be again with you discussing this very hot topic at this point.
Yeah, so actually I am very proud to have you here. Kind of insight you show in the various international issues is really very enlightening, and this is a good learning for our viewers actually. So coming to the topic, the Israel-Hamas war. This war is continuing, and we see that three fronts have opened in this war actually. So what do you think about this? Do you think this war is expanding?
This war was imposed upon Israel by Hamas, which is a declared terrorist organization. But what people do not realize, Hamas controls the government, the local government of Gaza Strip. So in a way, Gaza Strip is an unrecognized mini state. In the government, local government, they were elected in 2006 elections by the citizens of Gaza Strip. So they are there with the concurrence, electoral approval of the local citizens of Gaza Strip because they defeated the PLO and the Fatah faction in the elections. And also we have to keep in mind that since 2005, Israel vacated the occupation of Gaza Strip. Israeli army and armed forces dismantled their camps. They also dismantled the settlements of ultra right-wing Orthodox Jewish settlements in Gaza Strip against their protests, using force against their own citizens, because Israeli hope was that by giving a mini state to residents of Gaza Strip, they can demonstrate that, if people are given autonomy and are allowed to manage their own affairs, they will go for development, they will go for human emancipation, they will go for peace and prosperity. But that did not happen. Not only they removed all the armed forces, they still allowed at least 22,000 residents of Gaza Strip with work permits to come into Israel to work in factories, in houses, as domestic servants, in the labor market, construction sites. And Israel continued since 2006 to provide food, fuel, water, other essential supplies to residents of Gaza Strip. So the propaganda, the manufactured propaganda that Gaza is an open air prison is a lie, it's a myth, it's a unilateral propaganda by some quarters. Israeli border with Gaza Strip was not closed. Having said that, the Egyptian border with Gaza Strip at Rafah border crossing has been closed till very recently. After this recent war, United States pressurized Egypt to open, so some humanitarian supplies are being sent from the southern end. So the blockade for Gaza residents was not by Israel, it was by Egypt. So we have to keep that in mind, that any good turn Israel did towards the residents of Gaza Strip backfired, because instead of working on human development, instead of using the money that was coming from whether European countries, whether Arab countries, Iran, United States, United Nations, instead of using that for the population, that money was used up by the leaders of Hamas. It was used to create an armed infrastructure to attack Israel. And that is the saddest part of it, that you do a good turn and the propaganda machinery, which involves, the leftist media and Islamic organizations, basically presented as that Israel is putting a blockade on Gaza residents or Gaza is an open air prison. You were given your local autonomy, your local self-government, so that you can prove to the rest of the Palestinians that you can also run in the same peaceful manner. But that was not to be, because these people don't want peace. Their stated agenda, the charter of Hamas, is that their stated agenda is to destroy the state of Israel and kill the Jewish people. As to whether war is going to get murkier, yes, it is going to happen. You have seen the example of Ukraine-Russia war. It was initially thought to be a short war, but we are getting into the second year, more than second year kind of thing. So yes, when you have other fronts opening, especially on Lebanon front, there's another terrorist organization, Hezbollah, which is controlled by Iran. So there are some skirmishes there. But if you look historically, in any Israel-Arab war, there have been multiple fronts. Multiple Arab countries have attacked. This is not the first time. Have attacked the state of Israel, whether it was in 1967, 1948, or in 1971. There have been wars on multiple fronts, and it's unfortunate. And, after a while, other countries that are European countries and United States and other countries start looking into geopolitical interests, safeguarding their own geopolitical interests. So you saw President Biden go to Israel, but the second leg of his visit, which was supposed to meet with, Mahmoud Abbas of Palestinian Authority, that didn't happen for whatever reason, whether Mahmoud Abbas refused to meet with him or there was a medical issue, but that second part did not happen. But, the outcome was that Hamas released 2 American citizens who happened to be Jewish by faith from their, kidnapping, So why 2 American citizens only? What about 200 other civilians that have been taken as hostage by Hamas? Why not? Because they're trying to drive a wedge between Israel and United States by releasing the American hostages, but still keeping the Jewish Israeli hostages or hostages of other nationalities as human shields. And that's despicable. So yes, war will continue to get murkier, but any country in the West Asia region, and especially whether it's an Arab country, or Iran, if they join this war directly, they're inviting trouble. They're inviting trouble. Because when push comes to shove, when it's a question of self-existence of Israel as a Jewish nation, Israel will go to any extent to safeguard its independence, safeguard its existence. So empty threats are not going to work.
Do you think USA is going to support Israel openly in this war if the war expands?
So you already have President Biden come out in public and say that they support Israel's security. United States has already sent, some naval assets in the Mediterranean region. That is a signaling to other parties in the West Asia, North Africa region to stay away from joining the conflict. It's a very strong signal to whether it is Qatar or whether it is Iran to stay away. It's a very direct message. United States will never send its troops to Middle East. They have burnt their fingers, whether it is in Afghanistan or Iraq. So there is a unanimity, bipartisan unanimity not to send American soldiers to Middle East. During Trump years, for whatever reason, there was no war and no American troops were sent. In fact, attempts were made to evacuate American troops from Afghanistan. And Biden, after coming to power, removed American forces from Afghanistan. And even in Ukraine, they are not willing to send directly American forces. There are some private consultants and trainers, etc. But United States will give material support to Israel, moral support to Israel. They want to make sure that human rights of civilian population are not violated by Israeli defense forces. They have said that, they have sympathy with the civilians or the non-combatants in the region. And they said that Israel needs to learn from the mistakes United States made after 9/11, that there was very cruel and harsh punishment meted to the civilians in the region. And Biden also talked about, learning from the lessons of Holocaust also. So it's a kind of, reminding Israel that you can defend yourself, but not at the cost of civilian population.
So, do you think this Israel-Hamas war is impromptu, or this is a scripted one? Because there are so many things going behind the scene in geopolitics.
See, every war has a stated aim. There's no war which is fought impulsively. There's always a geopolitical aim. And the way Hamas attacked Israel, it was not a spontaneous uprising like Intifada that, civilians are coming with stones and all. It was a very well thought out, very well planned, very well organized invasion of Israel by the fighters of Hamas using multi-modality means. So there was a ground invasion using motorcycles, using combat vehicles, using pickup trucks, using cars. There was below the ground invasion using tunnels. Some of these tunnels there are multiple tunnels going from Gaza to Israel, to beat the border fence. And then there were paragliders. They have to procure paragliders from somewhere. And there's a Hamas training video showing how they were training their fighters to use paragliders. Then they had used drones. They had 5,000 missiles simultaneously, sent to Israel. And also they use Gaza Strip has a naval, it has a sea access. So they use some boats also. So it was a very well thought out plan. And it is stated that it was in planning for last 2 years. A lot of intelligence was gathered in such a manner that the advanced monitoring of signals is avoided. So everything was done by word of mouth or by written notes. And also Hamas used the maid servants that were working in Israeli household to do a recce of these houses, how many people are there, what is the layout. Everything was done by these, housemaids. They were used as human spies or human. So instead of using signal intelligence, Hamas used human. These maids were trained to gather information about everything, whether in private houses or in kibbutz. The workers who were working in factories and, on the Israeli army bases, all the information was sent over a period of time. You have to think that Israel vacated Gaza in 2005. So it is 18 years, and these people have been gathering intelligence, lulling the Israeli people and Israeli government into a sense of complacency that there will not be a major attack from Gaza Strip because we have already vacated the occupation, we have given them local autonomy, we are helping them, blah, blah, blah. And of course, on the day of invasion on October 7th, Israeli society was, celebrating a festival. In fact, it was the 50th anniversary of the, I think, the Yom Kippur War that was on 6th of October 1973. So Israeli establishment was lulled into complacency. They never thought that this could happen. So they were caught by surprise, and even their armed forces were attacked and killed. Some of them were taken as hostages. I've seen videos of Israeli soldiers being burned to death by Hamas terrorists. So it was a gruesome attack without, adhering to the rules of war. And yes, in this surprise attack, Hamas got a tactical victory initially. And you saw initially cheering by, crowds in other Islamic nations in West Asia and even in some of the Western countries when they cheered what Hamas did to Israel. But as the tables are turning, the same people are now talking about human rights and, things like that.
That does happen. And
Before I conclude that, I would tell you that the sponsors of war are there. There is direct implication of Iran because Iran did not want rapprochement between Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Israel under the Abraham Accords and then by I2U2 and then the IMEC that was recently signed. It was anticipated that Saudi Arabia will recognize the state of Israel and there'll be a kind of peace treaty signed between the two countries, just like Egypt had signed after Anwar Sadat, went for rapprochement at Camp David talks. UAE was already, doing business with Israel, so it was felt that there will be some sort of peace between some of the Arab states, not all of the Arab states, but the states that matter, and Israel. And Iran, for geopolitical reasons, did not want that outcome, wanted to keep the powder keg alive, keep the, conflict simmering, and probably encourage Hamas, which gets a lot of money from Iran, and other material support, including paragliders. There are also weapons of Chinese origin found.
yeah. So, who do you think which country is supporting this terrorist organization Hamas?
So definitely Qatar is there, Iran is there, Hezbollah and sections of the Lebanese society, I would say, are definitely supporting. There is moral support from China. There is diplomatic support from Russia. So there are many. There is support from Pakistan for that matter. Pakistan has threatened Israel to use the nuclear bomb in this and send their own fighters.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a potential for this war to become murkier, but it may not.
So, like we have seen, the World War One and Two just began out of such conflicts. So, The situation is different today. The countries are not what I say. The situation is very much different from those period, the World War I and II. But do you think such conflicts can culminate into World War III also? Because such things happen around the globe. Russia, Ukraine, and this Israel, Hamas, and sometime might have this China and Taiwan. Do you think though out of such conflicts, it might culminate into World War?
In a war, anything can happen. That is number one.
Yeah.
And sometimes prediction in wars is murky, and it is a fool's job to predict how the war will, proceed. Having said that, people were very concerned at the time of Ukraine-Russia war
Yeah.
that it will lead to World War III. The war has been in a state of quagmire more than 1.5 years, and it has not become a wider hot. And
Right.
I think the same thing will happen in this region. Hamas is a small player, small bit. Yes, it has backers from Iran, backers from Qatar, Hezbollah, all that sort of thing. But essentially, it is a regional country. Let me tell you, how does Australia or New Zealand get up? They have no axe to grind in this war. Why would they get involved in it? Why would Vietnam or Cambodia
Yeah.
or Indonesia, for that matter? Indonesia is a Muslim majority country.
Yeah.
Why would they waste their efforts and resources about it? It is a regional war in WANA region, West Asia, North Africa region. This is simmering over a period of time because certain quarters don't want to have a settlement. In fact, I was watching a video and it is stated that 5 times 100 years, the Arab citizens in the region were offered a state.
Offered.
Were offered a statehood, and it was every time it was declined. It was initially by Balfour Resolution in, I think, 1918 or something like that, when British people got the mandate from the League of Nations for the Palestine. And then there was a Peel Commission in, I think, 1940s that also suggested a two-state solution. Arab people rejected it because they wanted to have everything on their own. Then when United Nations came in 1945, problem from Peel Commission went to United Nations, and in 1948, United Nations, by Resolution 181, decreed that there should be a two-state solution. Jewish parties accepted a two-state solution, Arab parties refused. So they didn't want an Arab state as part of two-state solution. They wanted to control everything. And actually what happened after 1948, that some of the Arab countries occupied the Palestinian land. So from 1948 to 1967, the West Bank was occupied by Jordan. From 1948 to 1967, Gaza Strip was occupied by Egypt. Okay. So when 11-12 Arab countries invaded Israel in 1967, at that time, they were comprehensively defeated. Israel captured the Syrian Golan Heights, West Bank, and Gaza Strip. Also the Sinai Desert from Egypt, which was a vast piece of land. And after the Camp David Accords, they gave back Sinai Desert back to Egypt, and Egypt recognized the state of Israel. So Israel has been willing to do peace treaties with any of the Arab countries who don't believe in war, and Egypt and Anwar Sadat showed the way. Anwar Sadat paid by his life. Similarly, after the Oslo Accord, Palestinian state was to be the final outcome. look what happened. In year 2000, there was a Camp David meeting between Yasser Arafat, Bill Clinton, and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And Yasser Arafat was there in Camp David for 14 days. And whatever proposal was put forth, he rejected it. He rejected it because he did not want to enter into a peace treaty with Israel with final settlement. And in fact, at the time of 1993 Oslo Accord 1 and Oslo Accord 2, when Yasser Arafat was condemned by Arab citizens as to why you entered into this, he talked about Treaty of Hudaybiyah, that yes, it is done as a tactic, but we are not going to get into peace with Israel. We are eventually going to take that land. So 2000 again it was offered, and again in 2008 Israel offered actually statehood to West Bank and Gaza Strip to PLO representative and president of Palestinian Authority Mahmoud Abbas, and he also refused it. 94% of the current West Bank land was offered to the Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital along with Gaza Strip. They refused. So it is a simmering, festering sore which is not going to heal because the agenda of some of the Arab nations or Islamic nations is to exterminate the Jewish nation and kill the Jewish people. Everything else is propaganda.
So do you think they are going to succeed ever?
Well, you can never predict the future. If you learn from history, how many times Ghaznavi came to India on military expeditions and wars? Well, they have their own history. So if your stated aim is destruction of state of Israel, you have been offered a state under two-state solution 5 times, and every time you have rejected. What is your agenda? You don't want to enter into peace. You want to obliterate this Jewish nation and obliterate the Jewish people. Now, if that is your agenda, you will never enter into peace, and that is what, so-called Palestinian people are doing since 1948 onward, and even before that, because historically there was no nation by name Palestine. All this region was part of the Ottoman Empire. There was no nationality called Palestine. There were no people called Palestinians. It's a make-believe, contrived, manufactured grievance that we are the original people of the land. No, you were not the original people of the land. Jewish people were the original people of the land. They inhabited the Judea and Samaria region in the biblical terms. They were persecuted by the Roman Empire, the early Christians, and later on there were Arab invasions. And that's how the current quote-unquote Palestinian Arabs came to be, as invaders, as colonizers, as occupiers. You can't be the original people of that land. Original people are the Jews.
I am creating a video on history of Israel. I am halfway. I'll be publishing that and how this situation has unfolded. So one thing, since Israel has given a escape route to Palestinian people, whoever wants to leave the Gaza Strip, they can leave. So what's your report of what you know? How much people have moved out of this Gaza Strip?
First thing is that Israel still has not done the much anticipated land invasion of Gaza. They did give a mandate to the Gaza residents that the northern part of the strip should be evacuated because Hamas leadership is concentrated there. And they have given them time and extended the deadlines. The problem was that Jordan and Egypt were not willing to take any Palestinian quote-unquote refugees from that region, because wherever they have gone, whether it was in Jordan, whether it was in Egypt, whether it was in Lebanon, whether it was in Tunisia, these people have been troublemakers. They have created trouble for the local host country, even in the Islamic world and Arab world. So they are not welcome anywhere because they are basically battle-hard terrorists who terrorize the local population. So that's why they are not being sort of, welcome anywhere. I was, reading somewhere that the population of Gaza Strip is like 2.3 million. If the 57 OIC countries, take the refugees, distribute, it will come to around 33,000 per country, which they can absorb. But no, they will not take these so-called their Palestinian Islamic brothers because they know this mean trouble. And unfortunately, the leftist European countries tend to support these kind of people, and that festers the terrorism. Yes, Israel wants to protect itself against accusation of genocide and, attack on civilian people. So Israel will do something to give them the escape option. But if they don't do that, is at their own peril. In fact, there are reports that Hamas leadership was preventing residents of Gaza Strip to move southward because they wanted to keep them also as human shield. These people use hospitals, schools, mosques, civilian structures as their cantonment because then they can say that Israel attacked the mosque or Israel attacked the school. But if you're using this as an army cantonment, Israel probably would have no option but to attack that structure from where the fighters are firing rockets at Israel.
Because recently one hospital was attacked. Actually,
That is propaganda. That hospital is a Arab Christian hospital, Al Ahli Arabi Baptist Hospital. Actually, the attack was by a misfired missile from another terrorist organization called Islamic Jihad or Islamic Resistance, something like that. And there are recorded conversation amongst those terrorists about that the missile misfired. It did not fall on the hospital, it fell on the parking lot of the hospital. What had actually happened that the civilian population felt that this is a hospital, it's a Christian run hospital, so it'll be safe. So people actually had gathered into the parking lot. So there were some casualties, but the numbers are being manufactured that more than 500 people died. But on the other end, I see intelligence reports that suggest that 30, 40 people may have died, and the crater of the attack is very small, it's not very large, and it is in the parking lot. And there were no hospital facilities that were affected by this particular attack. And certainly, after the initial propaganda that Israel had attacked the hospital, people are realizing, even United States has said that it does not have any intelligence to suggest that Israel was responsible